Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Direct Comparison. In today's episode, we'll be conducting a comparison between the original Project Cars and the sequel, Project Cars 2. Both games are being run on a PC with the highest possible graphic settings enabled at a 1440p resolution, and we're just going to go ahead and look at some basic differences in visual quality. So let's start off by taking a look at the level of anti-aliasing offered by both titles. Now, the camera isn't exact, but we can still get a rough side-by-side here near this cliff face, and we'll use both of the cars and the railing as a point of reference. Oddly enough, the anti-aliasing appears to be better in Project Cars 1. The railing isn't the best indicator, but look at the roof of the player's car in this image. We see quite a bit of jagged edges on the top of the car in Project Cars 2, something that is smoothed out in the original game. But it is important to note that there is some motion blur in effect in the original game, which explains the bory trees in the background. Project Cars 2 has some significant improvements to texture quality on both the environment and especially the vehicle models themselves. The texture resolution is much higher this time with sharper edges, and the improved shadow mapping helps to bring out the depth in some of the finer details. And we also see some higher resolution textures on the carbon fiber material that simply weren't in the first game. Anisotropic filtering improvements are a bit harder to spot, but if you look closely at this image, you can see that the minimum distance before the distant textures on the road begin to blur is a bit further away from the camera position in the sequel. But this difference is negligible, especially considering the motion blur will be going full force most of the time that you're playing these games. Lighting differences are immediately apparent between both games. Project Cars 2 has a more natural look to it and removes the sepia tone that was found in the first game. We can see more blue in the sky, and the God rays aren't dominating the scene in this frame. We also see more liberal use of the lens flare effect in Project Cars 2, but it is occasionally used in the original game. Shadows have a softer edge, giving a more realistic appearance as opposed to the sharp shadow borders in the original game. Reflective surfaces are less exaggerated in Project Cars 2 and more believable. The effect is more subtle and natural as opposed to blinding the player around every turn with overwhelming lighting bloom. The water effects are impressive in both games, but Project Cars 2 features an increase in particle count, especially on the surface of the car during rainstorms. It is most noticeable when comparing the interior windshield during the heavy rain. There's higher resolution particle effects and more of them, and the improved lighting helps to make the scene more believable. So in conclusion, Project Cars 2 does boast some improvements to visual quality, but there are a few exceptions like anti-aliasing. The textures are vastly improved and look great now, and the lighting is more natural this time. I hope this comparison video was interesting, and if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content every day.